Leila Rao, and I'm here with the next installment of our LIA100 series. And my guest today is Dana Pylayeva, who is not only an amazing Agile coach, but also a good friend. And Dana is the author of several books on Agile and DevOps, as well as games. And we're going to talk about all of that today. Welcome, Dana.
Hi, Leila. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So, as I mentioned, I've known you for a while, but I really do want to hear about your journey to date. How did you become the Dana that we all know and love?
Well, I went through several iterations of changing and reevaluating myself and questioning. And starting from the beginning, when I came to this country, I was 25, just right after college. And some people don't know about that about me. I have a degree in robotics. And so coming to US back then with robotics degree, I had two options. I could go to NASA if I had clearance. Clearly, I didn't have one because I just came from Russia. Or I could find something else. And because I was one of the few women in my college class, I hated it. Honestly, I came out of college with the degree and with the very clear vision that I will never ever work with the computers again.
My goodness.
Okay, and I think now thinking back, I'm thinking that that could probably be because it was so hard to be one of the so few, and being constantly on the spot and evaluated against others, stronger gender and so on and so forth. But in any case, so I spent the first 2 years in this country just taking random jobs, like working in import-export companies. That helped me learn English, but it definitely kept me away from technology. So I'm glad that I went back to IT. That was a good decision, so reinventing myself again. But so I started in IT as a programmer. So I was a Sybase and Power Builder developer, and just little by little, company was moving to Java, so they trained us all in Java, and so I became a Java programmer. So nothing related to Agile yet. And so one of the software conferences I go into, and because I'm a curious person, I walk into this session that has this weird name, something about Agile, so I have no idea what it is, but I'm wandering into that session. And what I'm discovering is that, hey, there is something there, something interesting, and it seems that it can help us with the problem we're having in our organization. And specifically at that time, I was working on the project as a developer where our customers hated us because we were doing this 2 years project and never delivered anything yet. And you know the story, right? So it's a typical one.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, and so everyone hates you, you work long hours, and there is no end to it, and it's just so sad. So I came back from the conference and I shared with my manager that, hey, there is this other way to do things, and there's this new thing called Agile. Obviously, it wasn't new for industry, it was new for me, and it was new for my manager as well. So she said, you know what? There is nothing that can make it worse. So just let's try. Yeah, we were really at the bottom. We could only go up from that point. So that's how a journey in Agile space started for me. So we tried it, and it really made a difference. And because it made a difference for us, people in other parts of organizations started asking, what is that you do? What is that you did, that magic to that project? So it just changed the way how your customers are speaking about it. You actually delivered something ahead of time. So what was that? And so I started sharing this story with others in the organization. And then, as time came to move to a different company, one of the reasons I was hired because of that experience of introducing Agile in the very traditional waterfall organization. So that was the beginning, and since then I've been in different roles. I've been developer, Scrum Master. At some point I actually went into completely different part, which is the operations side of the world. So that's how I became DBA manager. And again, the opportunity came up. It was more of, hey, that looks like a promotion opportunity. How difficult could it be to manage DBAs? I'm a developer, right? I know how to create table statements or store procedures. Yeah, I can do it. Not a big deal. So it's that curiosity and lack of fear. I guess that's what's been driving me with all this experiment. But yeah, and again, coming to DBA's world, it's a different side of the picture, right? So in DevOps space, we call it wall of confusion. So I ended up being on a different side of the wall of confusion and seeing how different the processes are and how different the mindset is there. And so coming from the development side, I was interested in helping operations change the way how they work as well. And so that's my interest in DevOps started. And right around that time, the book came out, the Phoenix Project book, which when I read it, it was describing my experience, my pain, going through all these emergencies and all these escalation procedures. And so I wanted to share that story. Well, not everyone likes reading. That's what I discovered, because as I read the book and I couldn't put it down. It was just so good. So I asked people in my team to read it. No one wanted to read it. I purchased the books. I gave it to them. They didn't read it. At that time, I was running a small meetup in the company, and so I did a raffle for people to pick up the book and get a free copy. And the agreement was that they're going to come back and share the story. Nobody did. So it was all that frustration around, this is such amazing information, amazing body of knowledge that you guys need to be exposed to, and no one heard that. So that's where, again, my curiosity led me to taking the course on the Coursera. And course was around gamification. And so that's why I was, okay, I have this newly acquired gamification knowledge, and I have this problem that I can't solve otherwise. How about I try to create a game, and I try to create some kind of immersive experience that will help people learn the message that's in the book without having to read through the entire book. And so that's how my introduction to DevOps is like in chocolate was born.
That is amazing, because I did not know the story about you. I know the book, I've experienced it. That's extraordinary. So what was the process like writing the book and applying your new gamification knowledge?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the book, it really started first as a game. So I created the game, I ran the game first internally, and then as I was coming to Agile Alliance conferences for many years, I was coming there as a volunteer. I never saw myself as a speaker. I always, had this hat. I'm a volunteer. I love to be a volunteer. I love my purple t-shirt. That's my community. That's how I saw myself, right? And so then at some point, someone started questioning, why don't you apply as a speaker? Why don't you present? And like, no, I'm not a speaker. I cannot do it. Okay, so tell me more about yourself. What do you do? Okay, I run this local meetup in an organization. I do all those things. Okay, that sounds like it could be, you could try. So why don't you? And so with all that encouragement, I tried to submit a session proposal. And so that's how a game became a session proposal. And so then as I was running it in that first conference, and then it started getting accepted to many more conferences, people started asking how to run the game. Dana, can you explain it to us? And so the book really was the answer to how to run the game. It's a facilitation instruction, very detailed, very excruciatingly painfully detailed, because I wanted people to know how to recreate that experience, because it is built as a game. It is built to create that immersive experience where everyone is playing different role, but every role contributes to the overall big picture of how organization first struggles with the traditional way of doing things, and then with the Agile and DevOps practices, how they become more efficient and happy organizations as a result.
This is incredible, and I love the idea of you being a reluctant speaker, because when I've known you, you are a speaker who speaks at all these amazing conferences on a regular basis. Has this become normal now? Like, at what point did it go from, this is how I see myself and this is how the world sees me? Has that disconnect gone away?
It's interesting, because I'm still nervous when I speak. It just manifests itself differently. So even now, I cannot eat before my session. So which is hard if my session is in the afternoon, because I just can't eat anything. I don't feel hungry. I literally cannot put any food in my stomach. So that's how I'm not nervous, I'm not shaking, I'm not stuttering, or I'm not sweating, but I can't eat. So it's just my way. And it has been now 40 conferences, 15 countries. So you would think that it would be a breeze. It definitely became easier than that first one, but there is still nervousness. It just shows itself differently.
Okay, as somebody who's watched you do this, you look and sound so comfortable and so natural that it's a little bit disconcerting, like peeling back the curtain and saying, what's going on behind the scenes? Wow, okay, so let's talk about this experience, because I've also known you as a facilitator, and you are an amazing facilitator. How did that happen?
Again, it's all about interest in different things, and coming across something and sometimes stumbling upon something accidentally and just falling in love with it. For example, open space, that was something that first conference where I was speaking, that was Scrum Gathering in New Orleans, and there was an open space, and since I have never been to open space, I had no clue what that is. It just seemed like an empty day on the schedule, so why would I not explore New Orleans while there's an empty day on the schedule, right? And so, and you know, one of the speakers that was there with me, he said, like, why don't you give it a try? It's truly amazing. You need to experience to understand. And so when I walked in and I sat through that opening of the circle and building a marketplace, I didn't propose anything at that time, but I experienced the magic of the open space, and I truly saw the power of it. And so then that was my first introduction to it. And then I started looking for learning more. And I discovered that apparently in New York City, there is an open space institute that gathers every year on the Martin Luther King's birthday. And it's a 3-day event where Harrison Owen comes. So it's like people who created open space, who've been there in the beginning, and they just come together and they gather and they share experience and they run their own open space. And people who gather for that fun, they come from all kind of places and all kinds of ways of life. And they're not all from Agile space. Lots of them are coming from mediation or from solving problems in the parts of the world that we don't even know exist. And learning from these diverse experiences is just so magical. So that's what really drives me to, okay, now I know a little bit more about open space, so let me try to facilitate it. Let me look for opportunities to do it. Again, internally at the community, so there's always that hunger for trying new things. And my latest discovery, liberating structures, this is this year's discovery. And every time it's like, there are communities that we don't know about. They exist, they create their own beautiful things. And when we discover them, it's just that wealth of knowledge that now we can leverage in our community and cross-pollinate. And I think that's what really facilitation or coaching or game design, that's all about being curious, trying to cross-pollinate, bring new knowledge, and experiment with it in a different way. I don't know if it makes sense, but...
This is incredible, and this is so data that I know, because every time I talk to you, you're excited about a different thing. And one of the reasons I love spending time with you is because your idea of Agile is so broad, and you're always open to new things. Is that kind of an inbuilt personality thing, or is that something that the rest of us can cultivate? Because if you see something new, you're like, oh, good, let's go learn more about it. It's just natural instinct for you. How did that happen?
I don't know. Do you believe in astrology?
Whatever works.
So I'm a Gemini, which means I have air sign, and according to astrology, which I believe as much as I believe in Myers-Briggs or DISC or any other personality, in other ways to categorize personalities. So as the air sign in Gemini, I tend to be very open to floating to different directions. It means that I may not be as deep enough as some of the other practitioners who stay within the same area for longer, I tend to fill all the all the container that I'm given. That's what I do.
No, I think that's amazing. As somebody who's probably guilty of the same thing, I find that there's synergies between what sound like very different fields, and somehow by experiencing these diverse areas, something even more magical comes out of it.
Yeah, of course. And that's what my latest liberating structures passion is all about, because I'm looking at, and I don't know how much you're familiar with liberating structures. So they're set of, so I call them simplified facilitation techniques. There's 33 of them. And so each one of them has a much deeper practice behind them, like taking open space or trees or some of the other ones that are included in the liberating structures vocabulary. But what the creators of the liberating structures did, they simplified those more deep and complex practices and made them accessible to general public. So anyone can pick up the app or a book and find a description of how to run a specific liberating structure and just use it. And that's what they are saying, that you don't need to be certified, you don't need to go through specific intensive training. You can just come to a meetup to experience it, or you can literally pick up a book or a free app and run with it. And that's what's amazing. It's truly the community there. I'm sorry, I keep talking about it. So the community that's behind liberating structures is so sharing and so welcoming. Just in stumbling upon them accidentally makes me feel like this must be how Agile community was way back when it started, when sharing ideas, and it was all about just co-creating together. I think we've seen bits and pieces of that now in Agile, but there is also a lot of, hey, this is my territory, I'm not going to share with you because that's my IP. So it's that part about where we are right now, but I think we can change that by doing what you guys are doing.
I think you're already changing it, right? Open space and liberating structures, I think, bring back the original intent of Agile, where it's less about an expert and more about the co-creating and learning together. Okay, we could talk about that for the next 20 minutes, but I really want to get back to your community engagement, because you are very active in the Agile community. I mean, I can think of 100 things you're involved with, but do you want to give us a recap of what community engagement looks like for you?
Yes. So so I started about, I think 12 or 13 years ago. I started getting involved as a volunteer in the Agile Alliance conference, and it really started as well, actually, it's an interesting story where our limits becomes our enablers. So I was at a company that used to have a training budget. So every year we would get money to go to a conference. And so that was wonderful. And then I moved to a different company that did not have a training budget. And for the first year, I was fighting with older powers in the company to make sure that they give us training budget. And that was not successful. And after that first year, I realized that, well, so the year's gone. I didn't go to any training. I didn't go to any conference. So if I like this company for other reasons and I want to stay with it for at least 3 or 4 years, it means that at the end of it, I will be 4 years behind. So if I want to continue learning, I need to invest in myself and either pay for a conference or find a way to go to conference where I am either able to contribute, so I don't need to pay the high price of a conference. And that's how I discovered that apparently there is this volunteering opportunity with Agile Alliance. And that was my first step into community. I joined as a volunteer. I loved the experience. It absolutely changed the way how I saw the community, how I saw people, how it was truly amazing. It was this team that came together for 5 days, and a truly high performance team. It was just something. And so then for many years, I was looking forward to that 5 days at Agile conference for that volunteering experience, but also because as a volunteer, you get half of the time to attend conference for free. So learning, being exposed to all that content, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The light is coming from the eyes and ears and mouth, like I'm coming back form, which is interesting because when I come back to the company, no one else went to Agile Alliance conference. No one else was transformed. And so for the first 5 to 10 days, I'll be radiating information. I'll be, Agile would come out from every time I open my mouth, something Agile would come out. And then after some time, you know how that happens, you just get sucked into the same, I call it swamp, when everything is not moving, it's just that, quiet and, slow. So you get sucked back into that. And so then I was going through that 5 days of amazing life, and then 360 of just waiting for the next 5 days next year. And one time at the conference, I shared that with someone, and they told me, why don't you look for community in New York? I'm sure there are meetups. So yeah, that's a great idea. Why think of that? And so I started looking at different meetups, and I checked out a few. And so some of them were okay. Many of them were, you just come in, you listen to a speaker, and you leave. And then I stumbled upon this New York Scrum user group. And so I walk into the meeting, and guess what? They have a birthday celebration, because apparently it's, I think it was 5 years of New York Scrum user group being together. So they have a cake with New York Scrum user group logo on it. They're cutting the cake. So it's like true birthday celebration. And it makes you feel home. It makes you feel like you're part of the family. And so that was my first step into New York Scrum user group. And I stayed with the group. I'm still, a big part of the group. And so now I'm one of the co-organizers, and the group meets every third Thursday of the month. But there was something bigger that grew out of that group, because one day we said, hey, actually on another birthday celebration, we said, you know what, it's wonderful, but how about we maybe do some kind of speaker reunion? All these wonderful people who spoke at New York Scrum as a group over the years, maybe we invite them to come back. And that's how the idea of Big Apple Scrum Day was born. So let's organize one day conference. And again, it's all inspiration and a matter of, hey, there's a great idea. Do we have anyone who wants to run with it? No one. Okay, I'll run with it. As you start running with it, then people start looking at you like, oh, it looks like she's enjoying it. Maybe I should join and be part of it. And so now it truly became a community effort. So at the beginning, it was just a few of us running with that flag. Now there's just so many other people who joined from New York Scrum User Group, and even people who were not part of the group, but they saw us doing it and they joined. So now it's there are 7 of us. It's a core group, and then there are volunteers who are helping on the day off, and it's just speakers, coaches clinic. It truly became full-fledged one-day conference that we're very proud of. That's locally. and I'm still contributing to Agile Alliance conference. This year I'm one of the program chairs, and also in New York next year Scrum Gathering is coming. So I was lucky to get selected to be one of the North American gathering team member for Scrum Alliance conference in New York. So yeah.
I won't even begin to ask how you do all this, because I know you do this. So based on all of this amazing experience, is there some advice that you can share with the rest of us? I know, for example, that you are the most organized hacker I've ever seen. But besides that, for those of us who are not perhaps naturally inclined to say, there's a problem, let me jump in and help it. How do we cultivate that mindset?
Yeah, I think it's really something that we need to do more of, because a lot of times people who organize meetups or conferences, they need help. And sometimes it's difficult for them to ask for help. They don't know, it's great that people are coming to monthly meetups, but you really don't know who is going to be dedicated to all that behind the scene work that needs to happen. And so if someone comes in and say, hey, I want to help, that gives you a good indication that, hey, the person is taking initiative, so maybe he can become a part of this organizing team and help make these events happen, because there is a lot of help that we need. And so the more people understand that it's great when they're raising their hand and saying, hey, I can help. So it's never the other way around, that we never push people away to say, hey, you're not part of the organizers, you cannot be there. It's actually the other way around. We're trying to be inclusive and involve people, especially if they're saying, hey, I want help, I want to help.
So the easiest thing, whether you're shy or reserved or whatever, is see if somebody wants help. And that way, I think you do become a part of the family faster when you're being involved rather than just participating. And Agile has a way of sucking you in. And once you start doing something, more and more opportunities emerge.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave without talking about this next part. You know, your daughter, Erica, and you work with her so closely on a lot of things that you do. She's going to be coming into a very different world, especially than what we came into. This new generation of women coming in, they're mostly coming into a post-Agile world. But at the same time, they're coming into a very complex work life. What would be your advice for them on how can they survive and thrive in this world?
It's interesting that you're touching on all those questions. There was one training that I did where I had younger people in the room, and they didn't know what waterfall was. So any of the analogy that I was making with, oh, this is the waterfall and this is Agile, like, Dana, what is the waterfall? What are Gantt charts? So I had to teach them about waterfall and Gantt charts. But yeah, it's very.
It makes me feel old, but okay.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's amazing because yes, they're coming into a different world, but it's interesting that they're learning a lot in schools as well. And I know as Agilists, we think a lot of times that, oh, schools are behind, we need to bring our knowledge to schools. But then, you know, a lot of times I also discover through Erica talking to her that teachers are actually up to speed on a lot of things. Even the growth mindset, this is something that they teach in schools, which is truly wonderful and, you know, great to hear. And in spite of that, we still see the kids being cynical and still see them limited in what they're dreaming about. So I think it will take time for them to realize that there are many opportunities, and there's definitely they shouldn't limit themselves thinking in the traditional ways. And I'm sure there'll be new jobs and new frameworks coming out when, you know, they're ready to step into the workplace. But definitely, I would encourage them to experiment with any new ideas that they see, and connect as a community, because that's how they become stronger.
So connect with the community, get involved.
Keep
learning. Sounds like pretty good advice for everybody.
Yeah, and also experiment, but also take care of yourself, because it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's something I think we both had firsthand experience of, so totally agree. Awesome, Dana. We could talk for another half an hour, but I do really want to keep this conversation a little bit time bound. So thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And hey, good luck with everything that you guys are doing. This is amazing. I think by amplifying women's voices, you're just helping us share our stories and help inspire others to try their own little experiments. Thank you.
Absolutely.